Today, I'm joined by Ralph Alessi, an ECM recording artist, visionary trumpeter, composer, and educator whose work bridges classical precision and avant-garde exploration. With roots in a deeply musical family and a career that's included collaborations with artists like Steve Coleman, Ravi Coltrane, and Fred Hersch, Ralph's carved out a singular voice in contemporary jazz. Some of his recordings include his latest It's Always Now and his upcoming 2025 release featuring his brother Joe Alessi. And we're looking forward to speaking with him today. And we are live. So, Ralph, good to see you.
Good to see you, Abe.
So, Ralph, I became aware of your music being a grad student at NYU. This is going back about 15 years ago or so. Um, I was going to be in one of your improv classes, but unfortunately, I had to move, like, drop it because of the lesson I had. Like, it was the only time I'd be able to study with a certain teacher. But I remember that it was going to be an improvisation class unlike anything I had ever seen before because you were showing us videos of Wayne Shorter and Miles and stuff. So, how did you kind of come up with these certain concepts when it comes to teaching improvisation? Because it is really, really hard to convey such a, mysterious thing. And we're getting music from somewhere. So, talk to me a little bit about the process of coming up with a curriculum for something like that.
I would say I try to keep it simple, and the ideas really have come from years and years of being a musician, but also being a student. I had a really great experience at California Institute of the Arts, so in a lot of ways, the things that were going on there um, inform me. And again, the idea of keeping it simple. You learn through doing. But you also learn through listening and you mentioned those videos, but there's also incredible, the visual of seeing Wayne Shorter and Miles Davis and how they go through those moments and you can hear it, but you can also see it. And I think that goes a long ways, those examples of greatness. And That's basically it. I'm not uh, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I don't think, um, that's how I learned. That's also how I continue to learn. So for me, when I play a gig, I'm fortunate enough to go on the road and do a tour with great musicians. I learn so much, but I still listen to music and um, those the light bulbs go on regularly. When I hear music that's on a profound level, I'm always learning.
You know, um, you mentioned something great just by observing these players. Do you remember the first time you went to a concert and you heard people improvise and you knew it was going to be a different approach, almost like, there's no time to think about the exact notes you're playing every single there's just in real time it's just not possible to, like, if you're playing a line or something to, like, um but do you remember the first time you, like, saw a performance and you're like, there's something else going on here I kind of need to explore? Do you remember what that was?
Hmm. That's a good question. Maybe not the first concert and maybe not even that early, but maybe I can get to that as we talk, but the one something that comes to mind right now is seeing the Paul Motion Trio with Bill Frisell and Joe Lovano. There was something that was going on when I saw that band. I saw them. I was fortunate to see them, a good 5, 6 times. And I think the I guess the word that comes to mind is magic, and that's the thing in this music that can happen. Um, And you mentioned the word mystery. Yeah, it is mysterious as to when it really happens on that level and why it doesn't happen more. And but I remember just seeing that band and there was something going on stage that uh, really resonated with me and greatly moved me and was mysterious. Like, wow, how are they? how are they doing that, you know? And it's the chemistry that they had, um, and but also the joy and the kind of balance between intensity, but also but really in a very relaxed way. But in terms of early on, oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe I heard some concerts early on that I really liked, but maybe I didn't understand because I was just getting into this music, but something was going on, you know. But I guess as I got older, it started to make a bit more sense so I could be moved by the music, but then maybe start to check in with it and start to really learn
Yeah.
from those experiences.
I consider myself a student of music, just to give you a little bit of, context. I'm 37. I've been trying to figure out how to play jazz half my life, which is since I'm about 18 years old. And only recently I'm starting to learn that like the only way I'm going to be able to do this correctly and with the joy you're talking about is if I give up control.
Mm,
Um, but human beings, we love control. We like the illusion of control.
mm,
And this is something that I've just been coming to like the last year or so, like almost like a sort of like detachment. You have to kind of detach from yourself a little bit when you play. And it is a little scary in a sense, but do you ever think about that? The idea of control and almost being an outside observer in a sense and letting the music. Can you talk a little bit about that if you have any thoughts similar?
yeah, I think it's a balance between being in control, but also, yeah, finding those moments in the music where you do let go and you do uh, like take that risk of going over the edge, you know. Uh, I guess you know with experience you realize you can always find your way back if it does go there. You know, if you do really lose your control, lose yourself in the music. And I'm always struck by people who listen to music or gigs that I do where I know that there are moments where we have gone over the edge a bit and people don't notice it, you know. So I think with you know, that's why I committed to doing this
What do
because
you mean when you say like go over the edge? You mean where it's just that everyone is just on the same mindset in a sense, or is it the music just takes a complete turn and it goes free? Like, can you just give me just a little bit more info? What do
sure.
you mean by that?
Yeah, maybe it's not the best choice of words, but I think it's really just this idea of, you know what, I'm really gonna go now and try to quiet that fear of, well, what if I get lost? What if? And I think that's really where the gold is in a lot of ways. And if you can just uh, trust that you're going to be okay, or if you're lucky enough to play with great musicians, that they're gonna make it right and help you. And you know, I watch a lot of sports, and it is a team thing. You know, when you play music, and that trust factor is so significant. And you know, that's what happens in sports too. You know, you if somebody is stumbling a bit, you have someone right next to you that's going to pick you up and make it right, and it becomes almost seamless. And so if you are taking some chances in the music and you lose your way for a moment, um, uh, that's sort of the job for the whole band to be aware of that. Awareness is just paramount. It's so important in this music. So when you do have individuals on stage that are aware, art take chances, but then you have this collaborative effort to get through the music, and especially in those kind of rocky areas of the music. And with experience, the audience doesn't notice, and you can actually make a music because of that quote unquote mistake. You can really make some profound music if people all stay together.
Yeah, and I love everything you're saying. I wanted to something else I've been thinking about recently. In the Western world, the States, there's our culture is just full of competition and anxiety and perfectionism. In this is a lot. There's so many epidemics that are here in the States that do not exist on other parts of the world. Um, do you find that people play differently in other parts of the world, or at least come from other places, that there's maybe a certain element in their playing that's not there in the people who are from here?
Hmm. I think there is something in what you're saying, and I kind of agree with that. There is a kind of approach to improvising that tends to happen in New York in a certain way that doesn't happen in other places. Now, of course, that's a generalization, but I do notice it. What is it? Maybe playing with a more of a sense of urgency, maybe taking more chances. I don't know. I've been living part-time in Europe the last 5 years, and there are amazing musicians all throughout that continent. Um, but in general, there is a different thing that happens here in New York, and it's probably just a byproduct that has been passed on over generations. It's part of the energy of the city. You have all these people crammed into a small space, and you're constantly uh, uh, around, influenced by artists, musicians that are pushing the envelope, and I think that's infectious, and it is a thing, and I have noticed it, So I try to reflect that in my teaching as well. So if I'm working with students, and whether students that I'm working with in Europe or students that I work with here, I am really trying to encourage them to tap into that New York aesthetic, that what we've been touching upon in this conversation about taking chances and trusting, trusting that you can work it out in real time.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And as far as the younger players go, there's more and more of younger musicians coming up, especially, it's not just the jazz school. I think like just through social media, a musician who plays a certain instrument might come across like a 10-second clip of some musician that they relate to who plays jazz, and then that just sparks their interest completely. So the younger musicians are coming. There are more of them, but it is harder just because of the opportunities that aren't there. As far as younger players go, if there was some advice that you really wish that they would take to heart, if their heart is really in it and they see this as something they want to do long term, because people do this in college and then they change careers. I mean, at least as far as NYU goes, like there were so many people from my graduating class who got out of it like within 2 years, But for those people who their heart's in the right place, like what would you have to say to encourage them to keep pushing?
Well, you're kind of saying it in how you described it. If their heart's in the right place, then you do it. But maybe that's the question: is your heart in the right place? So, you have to do it for the right reasons. Yes, it's becoming more and more difficult to do this, but on the other hand, is it? Because it is something we can just do. We can do it. It doesn't, you don't have to have a career doing it. Uh, so at the very least, you've got to get off on this, and you have to really be turned on by this music, and that's something that you can do. I just say, if you do love it, keep doing it, and don't question so much of where's it going to take you, and am I going to be able to have a career? I mean, the that question has always been there, like, how am I going to do this? And yeah, if you have a passion for it, and that's the question, do you really, really love this? Can you live without it?
Right,
And
right.
some people do it, and maybe they don't quite have that juice behind how they're doing it, and And I guess you figure that out over time, but um, yeah, and continue to play with people, continue to have that experience. That experience it's an experiential thing to get together with musicians, and whether you're on stage or not, because you can have those peak experiences. I've had them before in lessons with students, uh, in rehearsals. There was years ago I had a rehearsal for a gig, and there was one moment in this rehearsal I listened to it, and something happened that was uh, I used the word magical, but there was something that happened in the music, and I kept listening to this moment, and that's a peak experience, and that was just in a rehearsal.
If your heart's in the right place, is really what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah, because, we, as young players, at least when I was younger, yeah, in my mind, I thought, oh, it would be great to have a record deal and tour and do all those things, and yeah, that's been the question that I've asked myself, like, why do I do this as a teacher? Why do I encourage people to play this music when the opportunities are few and far between?
Sparse.
Yeah, I would say I don't think that's inaccurate to say that. But how do you talk about that in a way that's positive? Well, the positive to me again is it, it's an incredible practice, and it's a lifelong practice. That again doesn't have to exist in those romantic ideas, which still can exist. I mean, we can still play gigs and we can still do tours, and there aren't many record companies out there, but we can make music and get it out there, and people can hear it. All that stuff can continue. But the most important thing, as I said before, is, are you doing it for the right reasons? And Yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful to have had these opportunities, but really the most important part of that really has been to be part of this community of musicians, such interesting people, uh, funny people, just really fun to be around, and whether you're making music or you're not making music and just hanging out with them. So it's really this idea of being part of that community, and if you can value that, then you're kind of covered, and anything after that is gravy.
Yeah. I've interviewed so many people, and everyone has such a different personality. Some people have similar personality traits. Some people are a bit more reserved. Some people let their guard down, but it's totally a reflection on the music and everyone's career, because no one has the same career path in this music. Every single individual will have a different career. None will be identical. And I think that's part of the thing that I wish was understood. I wish I knew that earlier on, because you compare your career to this person or this person, but my career is going to look nothing like someone else's. And but there is that, there might be that shame that comes along with it too, and it's just something you kind of have to navigate and overcome.
Yeah, always. It ain't easy. I mean, uh, uh,
Is it harder than ever now, do you think? Like if you were to go back 15 years or something, is it just as hard as it was 15 years ago, or harder now, you think?
in what respect?
Just, let's say you were pulling in a certain amount of money playing
Oh,
this
you mean
music.
the career part of it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the career part of it. Yeah.
I would say it's harder than ever. I don't think
It's
there's
gotten harder.
any way around that. I mean, it's just the economics of where the money goes. We have a systemic problem in this country with where the money goes, and the money keeps going to the top, and it has to be taken from the people, the artists, and all that kind of stuff. And that's happened in Europe, especially after 2008. things really changed there, and the situation in Europe with the jazz scene has really changed. They've become there's been more energy and more of a priority on local musicians, and it makes sense, so that just means less opportunities for you know Americans or whatever. But again, if there's a will, there's a way. We creativity is necessary more so now than ever. To have those opportunities.
Yeah. And there's the whole mystery when it comes to the financial component of it that people are very confused with. And there's a lot that people don't know. Like some people, have certain teachings. Some people have actually regular jobs who do this, 9 to 5s in the corporate world. Some people own property. Some people just come from wealth. Some people, they might have some property somewhere that they can take an income from. I'm just curious if you know any people. You don't have to name them personally, but do you know any people like that do this, like on a international level? Let's just say they're known nationally in the States, but they're doing something else completely financially. We just don't know about it, or getting some sort of other income that's really helping them.
I mean, nobody comes to mind in the way you're asking the question, but I think that there are people out there. It's always been the case where you're going to have to cobble things together in whatever way you can, and whether it's playing gigs and do people wear tuxedos still? I don't know. I mean, putting a tuxedo on and playing a wedding gig in Long Island, or but yeah, I mean. That is kind of the bottom line. Like, can you make ends meet? And people get creative. Yeah, I knew a saxophone player in L.A. years ago, and yeah, he had a real day gig as a scientist or something like that, like something so very far away from music, and he just played music.
But he was a great player.
Great player, yeah, and still plays. And he's been on the scene in LA for years,
That's
and
amazing.
yeah. So I think, the people that are flourishing, and it's always been the case, you have to think outside the box, and just have a different idea as to what all this means. That's what I was talking about, the idea of having a career. Again, you have to reduce it down to its elements, like going out and playing on the street, people listening, and you're playing music. I guess you could say that could be a part of a career, and it has been. I mean, we have a history of people at various times, playing on the street, and so you just have to creatively navigate these waters, and if you're driven, you will find a way to do it.
Yeah, we have to get creative. We have to be creative and find ways to put this music out there if our heart's in the right place. That's for sure. I wish, but people go to jazz school, and a lot of these things aren't discussed about entrepreneurial skills, or it's really just really about the playing. I mean, for me, going through 2 music schools, like, as far as like when it get down to the financial part, which you think you're going to college because that's what you're going to do, it's just not taught to us. And I wish, I mean, we kind of had to figure things out on our own when we leave.
Right. Well, I would say ultimately that's what's going to happen anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. And I think some schools are including that in their curriculum. And I think that, a little goes a long way. It's just, a course and money management and whatever it is, I guess the flip side is sometimes there's a little too much discussed about that. And then people put more time into making their websites and, and doing all that kind of stuff, promoting themselves, but maybe not enough time practicing and really developing your music.
Yeah, there's only 24 hours in a day. So
Right.
are you teaching in the States at any schools or
No, not right now. I still have the School for Improvisational Music
Mhm.
that I started in 2001 and still going on. So it's a summer workshop series that's been going on for 25 years, and so that's in August, and so I do that every year and continue to do that, and have I'm moving back from Europe the end of June. So I'm very excited about putting some real energy into the sim program and seeing if it can grow into more. Um, I teach privately, and so that's
did you start that program? I mean, obviously your heart's in the right place. Like you want this is what you believe in, but was even part of it financial? Like even if it was 1%, or was it more about a mission?
no the whatever. No, there wasn't any thought of that. I didn't think it was going to be a revenue generator. Um, no, it was just this idea of, well, what if we created something and did it a little differently, and yeah, just kind of pared it down to these ideas that I was talking about at the beginning of our conversation, of just kind of simplifying. You learn by doing, you learn by collaborating with musicians, and in that case, with experienced musicians that have helpful insight into how things work, and then you just get people in a room, put them together, and just make it about music, and be able to discuss this thing that transcends language. It's very hard to talk about, but I think we always involve people that are very good at that.
Yeah, talking about that's the hardest part probably.
Yeah,
Where
it can be for sure. Yeah, arguably, nothing has to be said in a certain way. It's like, yeah, you have to find. There are certain people that are very good at knowing when to say it and when to not say anything. And to because again the the experiences happen, and you learn by sorting all that out in terms of what works, what doesn't work, and you kind of trial and error is a big part of this.
when it comes to collaboration, um, that's another challenging part too, because you might get along with someone musically, but personally, like the chemistry is not there whatsoever. So when it comes to collaboration on your end, like how do you kind of balance that? They have to play a certain way that I like, but they also have to be we have to be able to relate on a personal level. Otherwise, if they're just not nice or something, it ruins the whole experience. I mean, I've had some experiences where players were like, very good, but like they just weren't nice people, and it ruined everything. Just the ego.
Yeah, well, I think maybe times have changed a bit. I think back in the day, I'm sure a good part of those situations where the music was amazing, probably people dug each other too, but there were probably exceptions to that. I kind of got that feeling just reading about certain situations and talking to musicians, and you know, but I think now it's more about the thing that you're describing, where it's this experience that is about being on the bandstand, but continues when you're hanging out, and that's something that informs the music. And yeah, I would say that most of the time I'm playing with my friends who
Yeah.
I love, and I love being around and hanging out with, and that is, as I just said, part of the music.
Have you ever worked with somebody that you really admired their music, but then after getting to know them personally, like it's like you can't look the other way. Like you're just forever. changed in a way about the way you view them?
I suppose so.
You don't have to name. No, we don't have to name the name. I'm
No,
just curious,
no. I actually not many really come to mind right now, but
but there are.
yeah, I think it can happen. I mean, at the very least, maybe it's just not. You can't really connect with them. When you're not playing. Maybe that can happen, but for me, I'd put up with that, and if the music feels great, that's okay.
Look the other way.
Right.
So you're moving back to the States, as a, I guess, permanent resident here in June, you were saying. So what are you looking forward to pursuing when you come back this year? Are there certain ideas that you just have like up here, that things you want to explore, musicians you want to play with, that type of stuff you could share with us?
Well, I think, I've been going back and forth for the last 5 years, so I just like to, first of all, just have one home
You're
where I'm
right.
not on an airplane every month and constantly jet lagged, and just really be part of this community like I used to, where I would be here all the time. And I've been fortunate because I've come back, every month and have a gig or two, and but I'm always reminded, like, wow, the musicians are so good here. And so part of what I'm looking forward to is just playing more with the musicians here and people I haven't had a chance to play with. As I said, I'm going to put a lot of energy into sim. I'm very excited about that. Um, yeah, just kind of dig into being a musician and a
Yeah.
composer. I like to develop a whole set of my music for big band. That's one thing on my to-do list. Yeah, but yeah, there is a quartet that I'm gonna play with. Maybe in this. I guess it would be later this summer with Steve Coleman, um, uh, Drew Gress, and Nasheet Waits.
Whoa.
I'm I'm hoping we can do a few gigs, and I guess that's what I mean. It's like having the opportunity to do that, and living here will help. I mean,
That's a
you know.
dangerous band, Ralph. That's
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm very excited about that. So I think that's going to be fun, and what else? Yeah, that's about it. I think I might collaborate with Dave Ballou. He's a great trumpet player, and we've talked about maybe writing a book together.
Are you do you have any plans to do anything with Ravi Coltrane in the upcoming year or anything?
Not right now, not right now. But yeah, it's always great to make music with Robbie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen you play with him before.
Okay.
That was, yeah,
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm.
At the Vanguard.
Okay. Yeah.
That was great.
Going back. Yeah.
No, this has been Ralph. Thanks so much for, doing this and sharing your, insights with the audience. It's been great.
Thanks, Abe. Thanks for having me.